All right, so get this. Parasitic mind control. Like creepy crawlies turning other creatures into zombies. You know that's right up my alley.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've been getting bombarded with articles from you all about it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's honestly kind of become an obsession, you know?
It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. It's like someone took The Last of Us and said, hold my microscope.
Right.
But, okay, the real question here, the one I've been dying to ask, could we actually design the perfect parasitic zombie maker?
Wow.
And if so, what unsuspecting creature would be the ideal host?
Well, that is a fascinating question. It's one that takes us from the lab to, well, pure science fiction. But before we start, cooking up our own zombie apocalypse,
Right.
let's maybe establish some ground rules, some parasite basics.
Okay, love it. Back to basics. So when we talk about parasites,
Yeah.
what are we really talking about here?
Right. So when we say parasite, we're talking about an organism that lives in or on another organism, its host, and causes harm.
Okay.
And mind control, as absolutely crazy as it sounds, it's really just another evolutionary strategy
Right.
for these parasites to survive and, even more importantly, to spread.
Okay, so not just survival, but outsmarting the host's defenses to guarantee their own offspring get a fighting chance.
Exactly.
I was reading about this one wasp, the jewel wasp.
Uh-huh.
It injects venom into a cockroach,
Right.
and the roach basically becomes its puppet, like walks back to the wasp's nest to become a living snack for its
Oh,
larvae.
I know. It's brutal.
It's brutal but fascinating. That's some next-level parenting right there.
It really is. I mean, it's a pretty gruesome example,
Yeah.
but it perfectly illustrates just how far these parasites will go, right? But jewel wasps, they're just one example. Your research also mentioned some fungal heavy hitters.
Oh, yeah.
Ophiocordyceps, for instance.
Right.
That one is infamous for its hold on carpenter ants.
Uh-huh.
And then there's Euhoplorchus californiensis, which pulls off a similar trick but on killifish.
Okay.
Makes them easy prey for birds so that the parasite can reproduce.
Wow.
And we definitely can't forget what I like to call the poster child for parasitic manipulation, Entomophthora mysco.
Oh, right.
This fungus infects flies, and it's like the lab rat, the mind control world,
Yeah.
Scientists are obsessed with figuring out all its secrets.
Oh, and let's not leave out Massospora. That's the cicada-loving fungus, right?
Yeah.
One article mentioned it actually doses its host with psilocybin.
I know, it's wild.
The psychedelic stuff in magic mushrooms.
It's crazy.
Talk about a trip. Okay, but before we get totally lost in the specifics of each parasite,
Yeah.
let's break down the how of manipulation.
Okay.
Your research mentioned both physical and chemical strategies,
Yes.
which are as different as, well, a jewel wasp and a fungus.
Very different.
When you were reading about those, did any details about those methods stand out to you? You know what surprised me? You think zombie, you think brain takeover, right?
Yeah.
But not all these mind-controlling fungi even go near the brain.
That's right.
Like, it's not always about directly controlling the brain. Sometimes it's about hijacking the body.
Yeah, exactly.
It's wild. Like the Ophiocordyceps fungus.
Right. Focuses on muscles.
Muscles, yep.
But then you have Entomophora, which seems to target the nervous system directly.
Yeah.
That just seems so counterintuitive.
Well, I mean, it's all about achieving the same gruesome goal.
Right.
Ensuring the parasite's survival.
Okay.
And one really, really common theme we see across a lot of different species is the death grip.
Ah, yes. The infected insect biting down on something right before it dies. Metal.
So metal.
But how does the fungus actually make the host do that?
So it seems like in some cases, the physical growth of the fungus around the mandibles, the insect's jaw, could be physically forcing them shut. Imagine that.
Oh my
The
God.
fungus is essentially turning its host into a puppet.
Oh, wow.
It's pulling the strings from the
Yeah.
inside out. Okay, that's both incredibly fascinating and super disturbing. It's
Yeah.
like something out of a horror movie.
Totally. And in the case of Entomophthora muscae, remember how we talked about it making sure its spores have a clear path to spread?
Yeah, like it wants to go viral or something.
Exactly. Well, researchers have actually observed the fungus manipulating the fly's wings,
What?
forcing them open right before death.
No way.
Yeah. They still haven't completely figured out how it manages that.
Wow.
But it's a masterful manipulation. Talk about a mic drop exit strategy.
It really is. The fungus is basically orchestrating this morbid dance of death, ensuring its own survival.
Precisely. But What's even more mind-blowing is that all this physical manipulation, that's only half the story.
What?
The chemical warfare these fungi wage, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, spill the tea. What's the deal with these fungal effectors I keep seeing in the research?
Yeah.
It sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel.
Right. So imagine a hacker injecting like malicious code into a computer system.
Right.
That's essentially what these effectors are doing.
Wow.
But on a biological level, they're molecules that are released by the fungus, and they can disrupt the host's immune system, mess with its metabolism, even scramble its neural circuits,
Oh my gosh.
all for the benefit of the parasite.
So less brute force, more strategic sabotage. Using the host's own system against it.
Exactly.
That's some next-level manipulation. What are some examples of how these effectors work?
Okay, so let's take the ant-infecting Ophiocordyceps, for example.
Hi.
Remember that death grip we talked about?
Yeah. Well, scientists believe it's not just about the physical growth of the fungus.
Okay.
There's a chemical component, too.
So it's a double whammy.
Yes.
Physical and chemical manipulation.
Exactly. In the case of Ophiocordyceps, researchers believe a specific type of molecule called a putative enterotoxin might be involved.
Okay.
Now, to simplify
Yeah.
an enterotoxin is basically a toxin that targets the gut.
Okay, so this toxin messes with the ant's gut.
Right.
But how does that lead to the ant clamping its jaws shut on a leaf?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question.
Right.
Researchers believe this enterotoxin, it might be messing with the ant's digestive system.
Okay.
Or even its brain, in a way that ultimately leads to that iconic death grip behavior.
Wow.
And here's the kicker,
Yeah.
the specific enterotoxin.
Yeah. They only find it in Ophiocordyceps species that infect ants. It seems like evolution has crafted a specialized weapon for each target.
Wow, that's incredibly specific, like a lock and key.
Right.
But for zombifying ants?
Exactly.
So we've got these effectors hijacking the host's body.
Yes.
But the research also mentioned these mysterious, small, secreted proteins.
Yes.
Or SSPs.
SSPs.
What are those all about?
SSPs. They're like the wild card in this whole parasitic mind control game.
Really?
We know they're important
Okay.
for manipulating the host. But the crazy thing is,
Yeah.
for most of them, we have absolutely no idea what they actually do.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Imagine finding a treasure chest full of locked boxes. You know there's something valuable inside, but you don't have the key.
So it's like a whole new frontier of scientific discovery.
Right.
But for zombie-making parasites,
Exactly.
kind of makes you wonder, could these SSPs be hiding the secrets to new medicines? I'm seeing the headlines now, zombie fungus cures insomnia.
Haha.
Yeah.
Well, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves,
Right.
but it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility.
Okay.
Remember, a lot of our current medications, they come from natural sources.
That's true, yeah.
Take psilocybin, for example.
Okay, yeah.
It's showing promise in treating various mental health conditions,
Right.
but it was originally discovered in a fungus.
Yeah, good point.
These SSPs, they could be a goldmine of new therapies,
Wow.
but we're just starting to scratch the surface.
That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
And speaking of psilocybin, one of the articles mentioned that researchers found traces of it, and even amphetamine, in cicadas infected with Massospora.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the fungus is throwing its host a rave before it dies.
I know, right?
Is that just a weird coincidence, or is there more to it?
It's a great question, and it's one that has scientists scratching their heads for sure. It's definitely tempting to just link those compounds directly to the erratic and, let's just say, uninhibited behavior
Right.
that Massospora-infected cicadas display.
Right.
But we have to be careful about jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's possible those compounds are just byproducts of the infection,
Okay.
or, they could play a more nuanced role in the manipulation.
Right.
More research is needed.
So, like a good detective novel, we got to piece together all the clues.
We do.
And speaking of clues, one thing that totally blew my mind was the timing of these zombie behaviors.
Yes.
How does the fungus know to make the ant bite down at noon?
Right.
Or the fly die at dusk?
Right.
Is it some kind of internal clock?
It's a great.
Or is the fungus somehow controlling that too?
That's a huge area of research. And it seems like the answer might be a bit of both.
Okay.
The host's own internal clock,
Right.
its circadian rhythm, likely plays a role. But
Yeah.
there's also evidence that the fungus itself might have its own internal clock.
What?
Yeah. One study on Ophiocordyceps, Kim Flamingi.
Okay.
the ant zombifying champ,
Right.
found that it expresses genes that are related to circadian rhythms.
Yeah.
And these genes aren't just sitting there. They're actively driving cycles of gene expression, including genes that could be involved in, manipulating the host.
Hold on. The fungus has its own clock? That's straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I know.
How does that even work?
We're still trying to figure that out.
Wow.
But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
Remember that Entomoptera muscae study with the flies that they kept in constant darkness?
Yeah, the ones that forgot how to die dramatically.
Exactly. When those flies were kept in the dark, their time of death became totally unpredictable.
Yeah.
But when they were exposed to a normal day-night cycle, even just for a few days, that precise timing of death came right back. What does that tell us?
That the fungus is somehow using the host's light cues to synchronize its own deadly plan.
Yes.
It's like it's saying, hey, buddy, you keep track of the sun and I'll handle the whole taking over your body thing.
Exactly. And it highlights a crucial aspect of insect behavior. It's incredibly adaptable.
It's true.
Insects are hardwired to respond to their environment.
Right.
And these parasites have evolved to hijack those pre-existing pathways, twisting them to their own advantage.
So it's not just about brute force.
No.
These parasites are master manipulators.
They are.
Using a combination of physical and chemical strategies to control their hosts.
Yes.
With incredible precision.
Precisely. And what's even more fascinating is that we've only just begun to scratch the surface.
Right.
There's an entire microscopic world of these puppet masters out there. Wow.
Each with its own unique bag of tricks.
Which brings us back to our original question. Could we harness this power?
Right.
Could we actually design the perfect zombie parasite?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. We've seen how these naturally evolved parasites operate.
Right.
But could we, with our human ingenuity, design something even more effective?
All right, I'm hooked. Let's dive into that. What would we need to consider? So if we were playing Puppet Master, what kind of creature would make the perfect zombie host?
Ooh.
And what kind of mind-bending control would we be aiming for?
Well, I think first we need to think about practicality.
Okay.
Like, as fascinating as, mind controlling a bear might sound,
Right.
it's probably not the most feasible option. Okay, good point. We need something manageable, but also something with a bit of, potential.
Exactly. We need a species that's abundant.
Right.
Widespread. And ideally, already well integrated into human environments.
Yep.
That way, our zombie army can really wreak havoc.
So we're thinking less Sharknado and more
Correct.
pigeons,
Right.
rats.
See, you're getting it.
The possibilities are both terrifying and kind of exciting.
And here's where the real fun begins, right?
Okay.
Choosing our manipulation method.
Right.
Do we go the physical route,
Okay.
like Ophiocordyceps with its muscle control?
Okay.
Or do we delve into the world of chemical manipulation,
Right.
using those sneaky effectors and SSPs?
Okay, so many options. Physical control seems pretty straightforward. Just hijack the muscles, make the host do our bidding.
It sounds simple.
Right.
But remember, even Ophiocordyceps is using a combination of physical and chemical manipulation.
Okay.
And replicating that level of complexity in the lab.
Yeah.
That's a tall order.
All right, so maybe chemical manipulation is the way to go then.
Right.
We could potentially create designer molecules.
Right.
Tailor-made to control specific behaviors in our chosen host.
Now you're talking.
Right.
We could target their reward pathways, making them seek out specific locations or even other individuals.
Oh, wow.
We could even manipulate their pheromone production, turning them into, like, super spreaders of our parasitic masterpiece.
This is getting a little too real, like, ethically speaking.
Yeah.
But hypothetically.
Right.
If we were to design this zombie parasite, we'd need a kill switch, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Some way to shut it all down if things went sideways.
Yeah, we'd need a failsafe.
Right.
Something that disrupts the parasite's control or even eliminates it altogether.
Okay.
Maybe a specific environmental cue or even a chemical antidote.
Right.
Safety first, even when you're designing a zombie apocalypse, right?
Good point. Wouldn't want to be responsible for a real-life zombie outbreak.
True.
Though it would make for a pretty epic podcast episode.
That it would. Haha.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick to discussing hypothetical scenarios for now.
Probably for the best.
But in all seriousness, this thought experiment, it really highlights the incredible complexity and ingenuity of nature.
Totally. We started with the question of whether we could design the perfect zombie parasite.
We did.
But what we've really uncovered is how much we still don't know about the incredible world of parasites and their mind-bending abilities.
Exactly. And who knows what other secrets are lurking out there just waiting to be discovered.
Well, one thing's for sure, I'll never look at a pigeon the same way again.
Aha!
Thanks for taking this deep dive with me. It's been equal parts fascinating and terrifying.
The pleasure was all mine, truly. Always happy to geek out about parasites.
And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the world of parasite-created zombies. If you're looking for more mind-bending facts and deep dives into the natural world, hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.